online, actually, because I wanted you to try it.
It worked. All right, Tommy Carrigan, he's got a lot to talk to us about. I want to give you the particulars again where you can find him, _Tommy's podcast, tommyspodcast.com. Find him on Rumble. Tommy, thank you for sitting by patiently and welcome to the program.
Yeah, you're cool, man. Thanks for having me. The book, who was ever off screen talking, is it Dave McGowan's Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon? Is that the book she's talking about?
Yes, it is. Yes.
I read that a couple months ago. That's a
very comprehensive.
Have you read that book?
Yeah, no, and it's weird because at first you look at the 60s and that was just a crazy time, and then you unwrap that and you realize that was a crazy time preempted largely by intelligence agencies, which just makes it that much crazier.
Well, yeah, I haven't gotten to that part of the book yet, and all I got to, and you can help me with this. What I got to is I've always wondered why we elevated these assholes to deity status. These half-hearted musicians. Well, they're geniuses. And then these people acted out in horrible ways that we have still not come to terms with. They were not good people. They were largely sociopaths. They were drug addicts. They were people that didn't were not worthy of the status that they were granted. And I couldn't understand why we did that as a country. And it felt like, I don't know what it felt like it was a sort of, they all had family in the military.
Or in special forces or whatever.
Right, but they were acting out against their dad in the military. And so I'm wondering, did the intelligence officials get to the kids? And were they then trying to get them to gin up some anti-Vietnam stuff? Or were these foreign operatives that wanted the U.S. to fail in Vietnam that got to these kids and knew that they were sort of disdainful of their dads who were military officials? What do you think?
I mean, just reflexively and based really on nothing other than just kind of gut, it seems almost like gain of function, but of the 60s. So you have all these kids who they're all bucking their dads, greatest generation, Iwo Jima, all that shit. They all come home after, they're all working in military intelligence agencies or the Rand Corp or Northrop. There's a movie studio, it's called Lookout Mountain, that was run by the federal government. And I think you have that, they probably looked at it. And then you look at LSD, I mean, and if you don't know any better, it's a wildly destabilizing thing. I mean, think about like wildly. 2.5 kids, nuclear family, green lawn, white picket fence. And then you have people, growing their hair out, driving around in Volkswagen buses, talking about having
overnight, Adam,
so if
Tommy, overnight, they happen very fast.
So if you're in the intelligence community, you're probably looking at this and going, this is some Soviet weapon. And so what you would do is if you can't stem the tide of it, I think what you do is you dump as much gas as you can on it and make it look wild to where people naturally would start to reject it and go, 60s, it all starts out, and then it progresses and it gets really dark in like a decade and a half. How else would you get people to reject this thing that you can't control, but rather, it's like, making the kid smoke the whole pack of cigarettes so he never smokes again. It's kind of what it looks like in hindsight.
I want Tommy to come on my show tomorrow and get a psychic reading.
He might need that because use that brain for good, Tommy. That's all I'm saying. But yet we have not really recovered from that. Would be my point. That's what Adam and I were just talking about. It's still things unraveled, and we've not been able to get our shit back together again.
No, I think we eventually will. And it's like what you were saying beforehand. You look back at, like 1950s kind of Mad Men. It is in your face, but at the same time, you can't scold the path that gets you to the summit. And I'll just real quick from my own. When I was in college, I was like super militant, like went to UGA, never partied. All I did was study. All I did was work out. All I did was meditate. Aced the MCAT, got into med school, and was like, okay, that's all well and good. Decided I didn't want to go. A couple months after that, lost my older brother to suicide. And then I just spiraled for like 5 years. And when I'm spiraling, though, it's like a midlife. So it's like an existential crisis of losing someone. But I also had this midlife crisis of like, I just threw away 4 years of at the best party school, got into med school and didn't want to do it. So I kind of combined all the vices that I never partook in. And at the time I thought it's like the trope of like, oh, I'm liberated, I'm happy now. I was miserable though. I put on 70 pounds, was addicted to several drugs, doing a ton of hallucinogens. I started the podcast in 2020 while living above my parents' garage because I had moved home because that's how fucked up my life was. And now I'm back to the militant, work 7 days a week, get up early. And you know what? It's not a bad thing. I took it too far in college and didn't enjoy life, but now it has brought me to.
You also you didn't own it. It wasn't yours.
No, exactly.
I don't know what was motivating you then, but you didn't own it the same way. Yeah.
So my point is you can look at it and associate it Pavlovianly. You can go, that's bad. You didn't enjoy life. Versus I look at it now. Well, I do my own podcast for a living. I'm my own boss. I'm sober and I enjoy life. So my point is we can look back at the sort of, Leave It to Beaver and go, man, that was a different time. But you also have to be very honest with yourself and go, are we in a good place now? And when you have kids chopping their genitals off and half the country thinks it's okay, I would argue that it's probably not good. And I'm not saying everything in the 50s should come back. It shouldn't. I also don't think we should throw it all out. Just for my own subjective, as one human being on this planet.
It's interesting. I had a mini version of what you had where I started college all down, and then I just announced I'm not up for this, screwed around for 18 months, got very unhappy. And when I came back, it's so much easier. When you really own it, it's like, oh, this isn't hard anymore. It's what I want to do. It's crazy. And my brain had matured a little bit. The male brain needs time. It needs time.
Yeah, no, there is sort of like, I don't want to be this 9-to-5 rube versus now I'm like, yeah, man, I kind of like it. I like getting up, going to the gym. I like going to bed early. I like it. And it's I think that's part of it is like, it has to be your own. So I think, who knows, in 20, 30 years, if the country looks wildly different, we might not be looking back at the 50s with such a bad taste as so much as we'd be like, yeah, you know what? We tried something else and it got really, really weird. And then, you just do the montage of like summer 2020. And we'd probably, our kids will look at that the same way we look at like the 70s. We go, yeah, it kind of that was a little crazy, huh? Got a little dark.
It does feel similar.
Yeah, it is similar.
It's really funny what Tommy was talking about the suicide in his life and how depressed he got and he started taking drugs. A lot of the people in that book that they talk about that lived in Laurel Canyon all came from that family history.
Suicide.
And their parents had suicide. Then they ended up taking a lot of LSD later.
Interesting.
Well, and then became a rock star.
It's the dropping out feeling. So now you're a biologist by training. And so am I. And I am mortified by the state of biological sciences these days. And I would call myself sort of a Brett Weinstein acolyte in the sense that he looks at the scientific method as abandoned or like what people aren't even trained in it. And I know you got in trouble for talking to Robert Malone. Tell me about do you have any strong thoughts about those kinds of issues right now?
Yes or no. Yeah, I have a biology degree. And then just doing the interviews early on with Dr. Malone, I had them on before they went on Joe Rogan. So I had found them and I was like, oh, I was such an idiot that I thought that we would all have a rational discussion where I went, oh, well, YouTube's giving me these strikes. Well, I'll get these doctors on.
It's really what Jay Bhattacharya told me the same thing. It's the mistake everybody rational made, which was, oh, I'm a scientist. We're going to have discourse like we always do. Let's get into this. And all of a sudden, like, what the F is going on here? Yeah.
I thought that I would get him on, and I was like, hey, well, I'll get on the guy with the patents, and then we'll instantly banned from YouTube, which then just radicalized me because, one, medicine's near and dear to me, but also that's really not something that should be glossed over. But ultimately, I'm not worried about it because it just is. And the best analogy I think I've kind of concluded after all these years is Chernobyl, and that you can have everyone in the KGB or the FSB saying that nothing's happening, and the news stations can say nothing's happening. But eventually, external sources like other countries start to go, why is there strontium-90 in the rain? Eventually, the physical reality does not give a shit how strong the KGB thinks it is. The atoms are just going to break apart. It's just a thing going. The winds aren't going to stop. The radio, you're in the Cold War. Guess what? Everybody's kind of looking for radiation. Eventually, the truth comes out. So with biology, as much as I do think that these interviews needed to be done, and I don't regret getting banned from YouTube and iTunes and Reddit and all of them, at the same time, I'm not too worried about it because I mean, you can label it all day long. We barely can get a supercomputer to simulate a single protein folding. You can gloss over it and call up and down and left is right, and it doesn't matter. It just is. You can censor everyone that says gravity's 9.81 meters per second. You can censor everyone. You can kill them. Dog, it's not changing. You could jump off a building. You'll fall. That's kind of how
it's something
it just is.
So you've said it's something I've said a little differently, is that reality eventually asserts itself. Reality is a way of coming through.
It does. That's the thing, though. It's not even asserting. Yeah. It just is. Our bubbles. Yeah. We're standing in front of a tank in Tiananmen Square and going, "You're going to stop," and the reality is the tank, and it doesn't even know you're there. That's how I look at it. So I'm not. You're sure we've abandoned the scientific method? It doesn't matter. I mean, it matters in that what we're doing is madness, and it will hurt us and only us. This science does not care. It does. It's the tank just rolling through. So I'm not too concerned about it.
That's good. I look forward to the equivalent of the Chernobyl miniseries, that we have a COVID series that is equally as penetrating to what happens. We can all kind of come to terms with it. It was going, the other thing I've seen lately, you mentioned getting canceled on everything, is that I guess someone on Rogan was saying this, that as soon as they feel the need to cancel somebody's opinion, it's a psyop of some type. There's something wrong. There should be no active censoring or silencing of people in this country unless they're, for the moment yelling fire in a theater or something, something that is imminently going to hurt somebody. You might go, okay, stop for a second. But other than that, that's it. And I was thinking, how Putin kills his opponents. Western Europe and the United States puts them in prison. How is that different? It's silencing your opponents. We've sort of taken that on and don't realize we're doing the same thing that Putin does, just without a gun.
Well, they're idiots in that if you're going to do it, you have to go through. And by that, I mean, once you shoot at the king, you best not miss. Because if you do miss, they're going to hunt you down. They're going to hunt down your family. You can't mess this stuff up. So if they're going to start censoring, right, they're going to kind of take the veil off and, this is what we are. It's a Marxist government. We'll call it private companies, but everyone knows it's Department of Homeland Security, FBI, NSA, CIA. They're doing it. If you're going to do this and start censoring, well, obviously you have to start with the outliers. You're going to get an Alex Jones. You're going to attack the big people, a Joe Rogan, a Russell Brand, or whoever. And you're going to start censoring just down the line. But the thing is you can never stop. You've now started something to where you have to set up a dictatorship, and you have to eventually, you just walk it out over decades. This is what you have to do. Because if you don't, it might take a little while, and it's taken a little while. 4 years ago, how strong was Rumble? How strong was a free Twitter? It wasn't. They've induced an immune response. Ironic. It's the most beautiful irony that through forced vaccination, they've actually induced a sociological immune response to now you have all these other platforms growing and blowing up, and all these shows getting stronger to where now 5 years ago somebody gets banned. Your average person went, well, maybe he shouldn't have said that about Sandy Hook. Now if somebody gets banned, like you said, the knee-jerk response is like psyop.
Yeah.
You now have a populace that is far more awakened to your processes, which means if you're going to start it, you have to go all the way through and set up the dictatorship. And they didn't. So now it's just, what doesn't kill you makes you strong. The muscle got destroyed, but now it's being repaired. So if you're going to go through with it, man, you got to have the balls to go through with it. And they don't.
I don't know what to do with that, but I'm glad they didn't.
I'm not saying no. Thank God they didn't. But what I'm saying is you have to go through. If you're gonna just walk into the bank and shoot the cameras and shoot the security guard, you've already committed murder. You got to rob the bank and leave the country. Because if you don't, I'm not saying you should. The whole thing is evil. But if you're going to, now you're just on the run. You didn't even get any money. You're stupid. So that's what I mean. It's there's thank Christ, because this is where we live. But man, if you're gonna start, you gotta roll up the tank, and they didn't, which is hilarious.
What is your? You have such an interesting way of looking at these things. because I don't find it hilarious. I find it deeply disturbing.
It's hilarious.
Good on you.
It's hilarious in that it didn't work. What they're doing is pure evil, and what they wanted to do is eventually, if you set up a dictatorship, let's make no bones about it, results in tens of millions. I'm laughing because it's in hindsight now, but they didn't go through with it. You can call it hilarious. You can say thank God for his divine providence, which is true. But they didn't go through with it, and you have to scratch your head and wonder why. Did they not have the guts? Was there some quiet pushback from the national security apparatus? I don't know, but they didn't go through with it, which is actually a very good thing because we have now survived it. You now have how common was First Amendment in everyday lexicon 5 years ago?
Oh my God! The fact that I have to worry about defending freedom is just like shocking to me. It's like my age. That would be my life.
How absurd is that? How weird is it that we have to ask ourselves, well, do we trust the CDC? I mean, 5 years ago, I'd be like, dude, that's the CDC. Will you shut up? He's in a white coat. He's a doctor. Will you sit down?
Listen, I said that at the beginning of COVID. I kept the part that they took off of all my commentary was the part where I said, hey, just listen to Fauci and the CDC. I know these guys, they've been advising me my whole career. Yeah, they've advised my whole career. I can rely on what they're telling us. And man, that's what I got wrong. Wow, did I get that part wrong? And shocked, and I can't believe it.
But so my point is ideally it never would have happened. And funny is not the right word. But ideally, none of it would happen. Ideally, my life would just keep going, and my life was great. And I would say I wouldn't have lost a sibling to suicide. Ideally, but I did, and it almost cost my life, but it didn't. So now I am much stronger. I have a much greater appreciation for life, and I also use my show and I talk to a lot of veterans who maybe they're tough guys and talk about shooting people in the face, but they all get a little quiet when you talk about mental health. And then you can break and go, well, let me start by saying I lost a brother. You have these hard as rock guys who they open up a little bit and go, oh. And so my point is it didn't kill me. And so I am now, ideally, it never would have happened if this wouldn't be a problem and I would be a doctor and whatever. But it happened. I'm now much stronger for it. So in the same sense, yes, this never would have happened, nor should it have happened. But we survived. Last summer was beautifully metaphoric. We survived the bullet going by our ear. That wasn't just a bullet. That was a Marxist dictatorship. We are now so much stronger for it that you have people who are just like, hey, I cut USAID. I don't care. Send the Marines to the border, whatever. You never would have had that Overton window shift without getting that close to death. So again, hilarious isn't the right word. Maybe that's just like a fear response of mine.
No, I don't dislike that you frame it that way. It makes you react. It makes one react.
Interesting.
To your point about things getting stronger, I've been bringing up for people lately. I heard this French woman who was Russian, been in France since the early 2000s, who was the executive director of Russian TV there. And they got acutely paranoid about her. And she was a Putin operative, and she's a Russian, she's a communist, she's infiltrating, blah, 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 blah. And she's written a book about it because it was such a horrible experience. And it was all nonsense. And she said, in Russia and the surrounding states, we do not believe the news. We have been inoculated by the Soviet system. This idea of fake news is matter of fact to us. So when the news says something, we know, just go, whatever. And the Western Europe and the United States, we want to believe what the journalists are saying, when in fact, the Soviets are actually better equipped to deal with propaganda than we are.
Yeah.
Former Soviets.
So you have to ask yourself, is it good? Well, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you a lot stronger and it makes you inoculated against it. It's an objectively good thing. But you don't want to learn that. I don't want to learn that lesson. It's not fun. No. I'd much rather not learn the lesson.
Yeah. Now, I'm guessing you have ideas about where we're going. So what do you sort of predict for, I'm using the term us, but how do you see things going forward? What are you worried about? What are you predicting, or can you?
I think the biggest thing is that people's willingness to accept radical change And then that's not objectively good or bad. It's just a fact. People are a lot more willing to, I don't like going to if you go to the ER at 2 a.m. and your stomach's bleeding out, you're probably going, I don't care, whatever the doctor has to do. People are a lot more open to radical change. I don't know. I personally like it. I'm personally right-leaning, but let's just say objectively, I don't think without an election, I believe, got stolen, with a bioweapon coming out, and with 4 years of just, we can't give you a tent in North Carolina, but hey, here's $100 trillion to Ukraine. And you can't do any of those things. I think you have people that are now more willing to take radical steps. And I think radical steps are what needs to be taken, because you don't even have to go on every 250 years the empire. No, let's just objectively look at it. We're paying more in interest rates last year than the DOD budget ever was. For the first time ever, interest on the national debt superseded that of the DOD. So you're at a point where it's now a mathematical breaking point, which means that one of two things historically happens. The empire dissolves, another hegemon comes in, and that's a very brutal period over decades and centuries. Or the empire does some sort of internal collapse and restructuring, and then maybe goes on for another 250 years. I'm biased because I'm alive right now, and I don't really want to see the empire, where I also happen to live, go away. So I think that is what we're seeing, be it tariffs, be it reshoring, be it border, be it, telling NATO that they're going to pay whatever they're going to pay. I think that the average person is probably a lot more open to radical change. Now, again, that's not objectively good or bad. This could very well be the death knell. I have no idea. But if I just, to make the most safe prediction, I would say radical change is now going to happen, and it's not just going to happen on some Twitter thread in 2012 saying Ron Paul is going to end the Fed. I think if somebody says end the Fed now, there's like a legitimate, you're like, yeah, they might do that. Trump might roll into Fort Knox with tanks. I have no idea. Yeah, again, good or bad?
That's interesting. Yeah,
I don't know. A patient.
You're right. We have come to accept some of this stuff a little more readily, and kind of. Because it's, I think some people that are sort of in the accepting mode feel like it's so needed. There's something needed to happen. And so it's like, it's rolling the dice and it's scary. But so let's talk about some of it. Tariffs, you good on that?
I know biology. I know nothing about this. And I just don't want, it's the liberal talking about, he had a belt-fed pistol. It's like, that doesn't exist. I can't speak out of turn on tariffs because I don't know. I mean, I could say some like regurgitated points, but it would be intellectually dishonest.
All right, fair enough. And then Adam and I were talking about DEI. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that conversation and those policies.
DEI is fascinating because it's predicated upon the same bullshit that both sides agree is bullshit. A drug that comes off patent. Modafinil, armodafinil, insulin, it's off patent now, a statin or whatever, a beta blocker, it comes off patent. And you go, well, why is it so expensive? Well, they sold the patent. Or how come that cologne's so expensive? It's bottled on the same conveyor belt. Oh, well, one of them says Chanel and the other one just says gas station scent, whatever. Or, you look at a painting and you go, that looks god awful. And you go, well, this is actually, a Pollock. And all of a sudden you go, whoa, this is brilliant. And I'm willing to, and everyone agrees that if it costs more and it's a bottle of liquor, you go, well, you're buying a brand. Everyone agrees if it's a drug, you go, oh, well, it's on patent versus off patent. Everyone agrees when it's an art exhibit, you go, yeah, it's BS and it's probably money laundering. So we all agree that when the titles detach from reality, like Chernobyl, there is no leak. No, well, there is. We all agree that when the titles detach from what they represent, that it's a scam, it's dishonest at best and money laundering at worst. DEI to me is that if you're a good candidate for a law school, if you have a good podcast, go for it. You shouldn't look at, am I a white guy with blue eyes? Do I have purple hair and identify as a fox? None of that should matter. And it is interesting that we all agree when that happens elsewhere, drugs, bottles of liquor, modern art, that it's horseshit. Oh, the military industrial, it's a $40,000 screw. Well, Northrop Grumman can charge that for a screw. We all agree in every other aspect of life when this happens that it's nefarious. I think it's just a matter of time before that same logic gets applied to this. We're in the process of it. It'll take some time, but
I kind of hope that my sincerest wish and fervent hope, to quote a famous person, is that good will come of the excesses. That we'll be able to keep some of the good, something will be extracted from it. That's usually the way it is. Usually you look back and go, okay, that accomplished something. It was, big price, lots of excess, couldn't go on, but all right, we can at least feel good about that, whatever it might be. I've just been through enough historical moments in my life where things that just feel just awful, you just go, all right, well, at least we got that out of it.
Correct. And I think that's probably where we are right now is, again, in hindsight, you wish it didn't happen, but it did. So what can we gather from this? The slippery slope argument is real. It does get very crazy. It goes from this to, let me teach your kids about it. It gets odd. It gets really, just how, it's not 1995 anymore. We can't be the world police with the dream team and McDonald's and Michael Jordan. It's like, there's a cost to this. There's a legitimate cost. And when everything's awesome, you don't really care about another line item for another aircraft carrier. When you can't take care of people in East Palestine or in, Hurricane Helene, and you start going, well, why are we giving $100 million to Sierra Leone to build a railroad that they're not going to build? There is something good that comes out of it. We maybe should look at this. We maybe can't take care of everyone. I'd say that's something good.
I agree. I wish we could. We can't. Again, back to your original sort of frame. Reality asserts itself. Reality comes in. There's a physical. There is such a thing as economics. It does tend to. It is a thing, and humans are Homo economicus. That's how it works.
Yeah.
What's coming up? Go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you. If everyone's looking at, I don't know, an oncoming storm or tsunami, you can say reality is going to assert itself soon, guys. That tsunami is coming in. No, it's not a tsunami. That's hate speech. Eventually, you go, well, listen, I'm gonna take care of myself, my loved ones. Come on, mom. Come on, my brother. I think that's a tsunami. We're gonna go to the high ground. I wish the best for the rest of you guys, and I do hope you come with me. But I'm also not gonna fight you on it. Godspeed. That's another part. Is reality will assert itself. So try, do your part. It's your moral obligation to speak up if you see something wrong, like the COVID vaccines and the doctors. But you also hit a point where 5 years later, I'm like, hey, God bless. My conscience is clean. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen now. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm going to the high ground. I wish you all the best. Here's an inner tube. I got to go.
I think that's a good place to kind of wrap up. What's coming up on the podcast?
I don't know, man. Just, continually I make it all up as I go. I've done 1,720 episodes. I never go in with any notes. Wow. Anything. I just wake up and hit the gym, drink some coffee, and let the fear of God make me not have any dead air.
Do you have any thoughts? Last question is sort of, I think a lot these days about hysteria and delusion, because I feel like back to Robert Malone and he was sort of first to bring up mass formation, or what he called mass formation psychosis. And I think that is very real thing, speaking of just things asserting themselves, just happening. And humans have this tendency to do this. Are you thinking about that at all? I'm constantly preoccupied with, I thought we'd finished with that in the 20th century. Turns out it's just a feature of the human experience.
It kind of seems like static electricity or something. It builds up. It doesn't come out of nowhere. If I walk along these wooden floors, I don't get shocked. I'm holding this fuzzy blanket. You're damn well sure I'm going to get shocked when I touch this thing. It doesn't come out of nowhere. It might look like it comes out of nowhere, but it doesn't. It builds up. I think what mass formation psychosis is it's a rising tension in the air. It's give me one night and not enough sleep. Give me 2 nights. Make the air conditioner go out. Make me stub my toe. Eventually, I think I'm a nice guy. Eventually, I'm going to cuss out a grandmother because it's just the wrong spot. I think that in history and in the future, mass formation psychosis is, I'll put it this way, I'll frame it more succinctly. Gavrilo Princip shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand and, set off World War I, and World War I caused World War II, and World War II led to the Cold War and to the space race. So you could say he was the most influential figure ever. Not really. Anyone would have done that. Any one person would have done that, and that would have set off everything. He just happens to be Gavrilo Princip, but it could have been Bob Smith. He didn't do anything profound. He pulled the trigger of a gun. Congratulations. But it was a spark. That one spark wasn't unique, but it was a spark, and there was a ton of gas, and hey, we happen to know the spark's name. I think mass formation psychosis, like Gavrilo Princip, it happened to be COVID. It happened to be George Floyd. It happened to be Trump's first term. Really, it's probably to come back to the median income's going down. Households are split in half. No one stays in marriage. People don't do fentanyl for fun. Opiates aren't new. There's a reason why opiates are destroying the Rust Belt. Well, what's the Rust Belt? Oh, we used to be able to have a job and support your family. Oh, so all of these things happen. I think mass formation psychosis probably happens when everything hits a fever pitch. It's not that it's anything profound. It was a cough. It just broke the camel's back. It was Gavrilo Princip. He himself wasn't a unique character, but it did set off World War I and World War II and the Cold War. That's how I'd look at it. So there might be some logic to reshoring American jobs. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe when people are just too tired from the steel mill, they don't go crazy, I don't know, set up some dictatorship and start assassinating. You might need that. You might just need like a median income, be able to eat a hot dog and go fishing once a week with your son. I think that's probably what it is. Keep it down.
You have moved my thinking on that topic forward, and I thank you for that. However, I did not expect to be discussing Franz Ferdinand today during this podcast. So, but okay. Hey, man, and if you really want to get into the weeds on Franz Ferdinand, do you know that they were trying to blow him up and they failed?
Yeah.
And when he went back to the hospital to visit the people that were injured in the explosion, one of the Black Hand, which was the group that was trying to assassinate him, walked out of a sandwich store and saw Franz Ferdinand sitting there, and so he just shot him.
No,
and that was that. And that's where it all went.
He thought he fucked up. He was like, I can't believe it. I didn't get the bomb. And he sits down. Yeah. There he goes by again. And it's just like you're like, there takes a gun and, it'd be like if Kennedy went under the overpass and then they came back again. You'd be like, are you kidding me?
That's true.
And then at a certain point, you start going, did the universe want this to happen? This is kind of, so I don't know. Yeah, no.
Well, again, that's kind of your point. Yeah. That's kind of your point.
Is that there was
there was other stuff brewing, and that's true. That's the case. So you have moved my thinking forward. I appreciate it. It is _Tommy's Podcast on X. It is tommyspodcast.com. I appreciate you being here, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me.